welcome to the CFIT webinar today and a day in November, the 4th of November. Today we are starting this off, and I hope that you will enjoy the webinar. We have been looking forward to this to share our results within the CFIT project. So we hope you will enjoy all the things that we share today. And the expectations for today, we will share our main results and learnings. There's a lot in the project, so this is also why we have tried to focus on the main results. We hope you will get some useful knowledge, insights, and perspectives, and of course that you will enjoy the webinar as well. We have been talking a lot about how we should share the results in a meaningful way, so it gets out in the best way. And we thought that this webinar setup would actually be a really good setup to share not only the results, but also the perspectives and all the insights that we have within the project. So the webinar is divided into 2 days. Today there's 2 sessions, one about plastic circularity and one about the material understanding and recycling potential of plastics. And the second day is the 4th of November, and there we are going to talk about evaluation and decision basis, and then also about infrastructure and value chain. So today it will be, as I said, these 2 sessions. Matthias will be facilitating the plastic circularity session, and Jakob will facilitate the other session about the material understanding. Just some practical information about this webinar. It will be recorded. This will also be done because some of the content will be made as small videos that we will upload on the Trace homepage afterwards, so that people from outside can actually also get some of the learnings in smaller pieces, and we will make that available after the webinar has been done, so sometime after day number 2. For questions, please use the Q&A instead of the chat. Then in the Q&A, we will see the questions and ask them. There will be, after each presentation or video, there will be time for some questions, and also during the panel discussion. There will be some breaks between the session, and also ad hoc if it makes sense. And in each session there's an introduction, then there's presentations of videos with some results and knowledge that build up to the panel discussion and perspectivation of the results that was just presented. Just before we go to the sessions, I would like to just set a little bit of background for the CFIT project, and also for you to understand why we have made these sessions. So the CFIT project is part of Trace. Trace is a mission-driven partnership, and it contributes to the Danish climate goal. Trace works within circular economy, and it has its focus on plastic and textiles. And the CFIT project is in the plastic track. Trace is a big partnership with plus 115 partners, and it is created and financed by the Innovation Fund Denmark. And you can see some of the partners in the box over here. So this just give you an idea of the CFIT project, where it is located in the Trace matrix, where you can see that it is in the plastic track, but it also has a really broad scope. So it go across the different categories that they have in Trace, with materials, design and production, system and services, and recovery. So it's just for you to understand that CFIT is a really broad project. You can see it in relation to some of the other projects. It's not all the trace projects that are within this, but some of them. So the CFIT project has a total budget of 23.2 million Danish crowns, and it also has a funding rate of 46%. It runs a little bit over 3 years, but the important thing of the project, I think, is that it has 10 partners. It has 4 universities and 5 companies, and then one DTS institute that is Danish Technological Institute. We have a really broad insight from all these companies and universities. We have different products we are looking into. So there's toys from Lego and medical devices from Novo, and also the packaging from Mathias and Novo Nordisk. Then Trebo has a sorting technology for separating material. And then from the universities, we have many different research areas as well. So with this partnership, we really have a broad knowledge and insight, and it has been a huge potential within this project, but it has also made it a little bit challenging to find the right focuses and how we find the best way to dig deep into what really matters. So in the CFIT project, we kind of made a foundation. So we have what is the mission and vision, and the mission is to contribute to the implementation of high quality plastic recycling. It is also how we use resources responsible. We like to contribute with knowledge and tools and learnings. And the vision is to enable companies to use recycled plastics, and the holistic view of the CFIT project also hopefully enable to share these dependencies and challenges and tools that we have been looking into in the project, and share the learnings with you guys and with the industry and society at large. The CFIT project has been looking into the whole circle of the material flow. So this circle actually draw up how the material goes around in the circle, and we have been looking into the different parts of the circle. It has both been in relation to material knowledge that has been used in many places within the circle. It has also been in production, where we can in the production setup there will be added some complexity when you use recycled material for use and consumers. There's something about how is the product used, how long time is it out with the consumer, and also what are the incentives for the consumer to actually take the material back in the loop. Then there's also, we have been looking into how can we sort the plastic, how can we separate it, and of course also the evaluation of all the things that we do within the circle, so it actually is viable, both in relation to technology, to economy, and to the environment. The CFIT project has a lot of perspectives. So now I have kind of put some layers in here. So it's also to say that for each part in the circle, there will be different perspectives that we look or you can look into in a circle. We have not been looking into all the levels in each part of the circle, but it's just to say that it is very complex, and we have been taking out some of the levels somewhere in the circle. So it goes from society and down to the molecular understanding within the project. So we have really been looking into different parts, and it is very broad. So what we did in the project was that we needed to somehow figure out how we could manage it in the best way, and balancing the visions and the concrete activities that we had. So we made up 4 working groups, and that is also how the sessions are made up. So we have a working group within the structure and value chains, and there we could look into what is the focus, what are the key themes within this group, and what is the activities that we needed to do there to actually go further and learn the most important things. So it's just for you to understand that this is also how we work within the project, and this is also why the sessions is being set like it is. So I think with this we will go to the webinars. So Mathias, I think the screen is yours.
Thank you, Line. Thank you so much. And thank you all for attending this session on plastic circularity. My name is Mathias Kirk Thøgersen, and I work here at Danish Technological Institute as a consultant. And I'm a chemist by training, and I work in many of these value chain collaborations that we are part of on plastic recycling, where we try to recycle more plastic fractions into higher and higher quality. And that's also, I would say, the headline of this whole session today, which is achieving true plastic circularity. And in this working group, in this session, we've been working with different parts of this material flow cycle, from both design, production, collection and sorting, and the recycling part of things as well. So this is the agenda for the session today. I will go into the first video now, and if it was all up to Frode Nygård, global lead recycling at Novo Nordisk, then there would be much fewer plastics to separate from each other. So we will hear a video on his consideration on how we could ideally change this in the future. So let's see if we can get the video from Frode up and running.
Hello, my name is Frode Nygård. I'm a part of the TechPack team at Novo Nordisk, and I'm sitting with the responsibility of what happens with the devices when they are coming back from the TechPack program. I will talk a little bit about design for circularity and design for recycling. The challenge that we all have when it comes to recycling is that we are working with legacy devices or legacy products, meaning products that have been developed a long time ago, long before design for circularity and design for recycling was in fashion. Our products, they have mainly been designed based on patient safety, functionality and user friendliness. Material selections, mechanical design, complexity of the devices have been designed with this in mind, not with design for recycling in mind. So our devices, they consist of multiple different plastic materials. We have mainly PP, POM and PC-ABS. Within those plastic materials, we also have different grades, we have different colors, we have different additives in them. We are selecting this because we want special properties and special functionality into our mechanical design and the device in general. So it's a reason why we do this, but it drives complexity on recycling. We also have metal springs, both magnetic and non-magnetic. We have a glass cartridge that is designed into the product. All this is creating a cocktail that is very difficult to find recycling processes for today in the market. So you need to find partners that are willing to develop these processes together with you. That's something we have found. We have done that over the last years, and we have that now. So although this is difficult, One of the biggest rewards by doing what we are doing today is the learnings we are getting out of it, and the opportunities that gives us to design and do things differently in the future. So we know what we have done in the past, but then we also know what we need to do differently in the future if we want to accommodate for recycling. So what drives then efficient and effective recycling? It's mainly two things. It's volumes and it's uniform waste streams. Volumes gives you the opportunity to develop the processes and actually start doing recycling. The bigger volumes, the better. Uniform waste streams means much fewer materials, as few materials as possible, and the materials that you have in your process needs to be robust for recycling, both mechanically and then in the future also chemical recycling. So when I'm talking about this internally then and challenging, what we're going to do on future devices, I'm saying, okay, as few materials as possible, that's what you're getting. When you select plastic materials, select them so that they are robust for recycling. Also select materials that are easy to separate with existing and available technologies in the market, optical, density sorting, whatever technologies that are available. If you design with metal, then design with magnetic metal. It's easy to separate, get out with magnets. If you have products with glass and materials that are difficult to recycle, then accommodate for the assembly, where that also gives you, are possible, so that you get these materials out before you start crushing and mixing and then trying to separate afterwards. So all these are things that you need to think about when you design future devices for circularity and for recyclability. If you want to go all the way, which is where we need to go in the future, if you want to change the way we are using plastic, for example, meaning closing the loop, using the recycled materials back into the same products, you need to look at the variations, the bigger variations you will have on recycled materials batch to batch, compared to, for example, virgin. And you need to design that into your production processes. So your tolerance chains and the tolerances on the different components needs to accommodate for process windows with bigger batch-to-batch variations on recycled material. So if you do that, if you design that into your product, you will open up for more closed loop recycling on future product designs. We also want to create impact, and we can't create impact on our own. We can't change the world on our own. So that's why we are developing industrial processes, and we are inviting the partners from the industry in. That will drive the volumes up, but it will also spread the learnings out. So hopefully we can get these learnings out so that they are getting the same learnings and designing future devices in the same way, potentially even having uniform waste streams across the industry, standard materials that are going into a bigger recycling supply chain. So these are the main learnings that you need to have in mind when you're designing for circularity and designing for recycling. To summarize, volume, uniform waste streams, few materials. It will be a compromise to design future products for recycling. You need to think differently. You can't do all the stuff that you have done in the past, but it's the only way if we want to create a more circular future and change the way we are using resources today. So plastic is not the problem. It's the way we are using plastic in our products that is the challenge. It all starts with the design. So thank you for listening, and see you around. Bye.
And thank you to Frode for this very nice video on design for circularity. I'm thinking about here we're talking design for different products that will be on the market years in the future. So how do you balance this designing for the recycling technologies that exist today, or do you also look into what might come in the future? How do you balance this?
Yeah, we are looking into that, and as I see the future, if we want to create a new ecosystem around plastic in the future, shortcut, the cord to non-renewable resources, We can't look at one technology alone. We have to use everything that we have available in our supply chain. That means bio-based plastics, that means Power-to-X, everything that can give sustainable raw materials to plastic production, we have to look into. We need to look into mechanical recycling. We need to also look into chemical recycling. Chemical recycling is not mature yet, but has been developing and tried to develop over many years, but is getting closer, and they are getting better, and it's invested a lot of money in it. The good thing, what I see, is that the dream that they had before on chemical recycling, meaning old plastic becoming resource for new plastic, that they could just get everything and make magic out of it, that has shown not to work. So all the stuff that we are doing today with mechanical recycling is needed in the future. So what the resource is doing, what we are doing in the REMED program, separating materials into clean plastic streams, that will be needed anyways, because plastic types has to, in a way, go into different chemical recycling streams based on what plastic it is. So the challenge is that today plastic is not developed based on fitting to recyclability or fit to a potential chemical recycling process. Where I see huge potential also is when the resin industry is starting to actually develop plastic that fits to the chemical recycling processes, so that you get like a customized, or not a customized plastic, but plastic that actually fits to that process, so that they can get efficiency out of both processes, both the mechanical first, and then when you know the life is ending for the plastic, and we have to go for chemical recycling, because that's like the option where the plastic quality is too low. Then you go for chemical recycling, that you have plastic that actually has been customized and tailored for such a system. And that if we can then also choose these plastics and use them in our products, then it would be really good. So that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you. And I think it makes total sense. And as you also mentioned in the video, it is a question of actually getting volumes that makes it feasible to recycle these different fractions. And one way is, of course, as you do, invite competitors into your take-back scheme. But I also think this is very interesting, and you must be one of the first to do this. So is there also considerations about competitiveness in this regard, or?
Yeah, clearly it was in the start, but it was a management decision from the top down that we wanted to make an impact, and we wanted to make a difference, and we also wanted the cost to go down, because alone the cost for us will be just high. We need to carry everything, and with volumes, your cost per ton and your cost per whatever use recycled unit is going down. So it was also a matter of cost, and that's another twist on the recycling thing. If we want to go for full circularity and create a circular future, some of the competitive edges in the current society is being removed, because we would then like materials to be equal and similar, and as similar as possible. So we won't let the suppliers that today are just engineering everything engineer anymore. They are not supposed to make anything that is unique, because uniqueness is destroying circularity. So we want them to make something that is similar, that can go into a similar uniform waste stream. So this is not only us partnering with our partners in the industry, but it's also the whole way through a circular society. You are taking away the possibility to be, to differentiate based on small, making things unique. But actually, your differentiation will be to make things equal and efficient, and of good quality. So it's and that's probably also one of the big obstacles to getting to that circular future, because you are touching on an economical system that where a lot of money is being moved around, and you are taking away some of the competitive edge when you are talking about circularity. So yes, it is definitely a consideration, and it was strange to sit with our biggest competitors in Bausweiler, probably the only one that has happened, the only time. But it was really rewarding, and we are rolling it out now, and we want to become more and more industrial and have industry collaboration on this. That's also paves the way. You know, if we can do it in the pharma industry, then hopefully we can be like a guiding star for others to follow. So let's see. But it's not easy, because everybody has legacy devices. So all devices currently on the market, they are different. So so colors and additives and you name it. So that's complexity. Yes.
It is really complex. Thank you so much, Frode, for your video and your answers here. I don't see any more questions to this, so let's move on into the sorting part of the material flow cycle. Here we will be hearing a live presentation from Thomas Trebbien, who's a co-founder and CTO of Trebo, and they have developed technology to effectively separate different plastic types from each other. And I think, Thomas, I'll just let the word be yours, and you can share your presentation whenever you are ready.
Thank you for this. I just want to briefly tell you a bit about Trebo, who we are, what we do at Trebo. And first of all, of course, my name is Thomas Trebbien, and I'm the co-founder and CTO of Trebo. What we do at Trebo is that very briefly, we sort materials using our breakthrough patented technology. Our business model is sorting as a service. We also do sourcing and supply. We have our headquarters and sorting facility in Denmark, in Albertslund. And we are actually currently scaling our operations to Germany, mainly due to the automotive industry, which is a bit on soon they will be on legislative pressure. What we also do is that we rival virgin costs without compromising quality. So the core of Trebo is our FMT sorting technology, which is a fluid mechanical technology. It can sort very complex mixtures of plastics, but also plastics and metals. The reason why it's unique is that we don't have any color limitations, for example. We can handle dark and transparent and like black materials, no problem. And we don't have any ratio limitations. So we can do a 50-50 ratio in the mixture, or some other ratios. So yeah, our solution is we have a closed loop service we provide for, that's our main focus in Trebo, is that we do closed loop service together with customers, where they send their, for example, their production scrap or from take-back schemes. We sort out the materials, and then these companies, they get the materials back and produce new products. Within the open loop, as you see here, we do we take in the same materials, could work as the same, and then we sell it on the market. And we also do sourcing and supply, where we acquire these complex waste streams that are on the market from other waste handlers, and then we supply high quality recyclates back to the market as well. So just examples here, also some from the medical industry. Here we are doing some open loop recycling with one of the large Danish companies. They have a pretty complex mixture with PP, TPU, MABS, PET, EVA, TPV. So a lot of different stuff. We take in the production scrap, sort out the materials, and then they get used for new things. Not in a closed loop yet, but we're working on it. But at the moment, it's open loop. One of our largest customers is Amaral Beltec. They produce these conveyor belts for all kinds of industries. Also very complex waste streams. Here we handle their production scrap, but we're also handling their take-back scheme, where they see it as as a competitive advantage that they can, as the first one in this industry, take back their old conveyor belts and then produce new conveyor belts of the materials that we sort. We have done a third-party validated LCA on this, which also shows a huge saving in CO2, more than 77%. Very proud of this project. That was just one more example. That's a closed loop. Another closed loop is from our customer Primo. They do extruded profiles, also very complex waste stream where they have ABS, TPE, tape, and foam. They use then 30% recycled material into the exact same product, so also closed loop. And here to just want to show you what we did or one of the things we did in the CFIT project here. We worked closely together with Lego, where we wanted to test what can we actually sort, how does it work, and what kind of purities could we achieve. And as you see here on the right, we with the ABS, which is the main material that Lego uses, we achieve very, very high purities. Also, with most of the other materials, we also achieve very, very high purities. And it was both tested at our site, but also at Lego's own site. This was of course a controlled sorting test, so that we could see if it was even possible to look into the large scale. And here we did a large scale sample also from Lego, where we extracted a 30 kilo sample. 60% of that sample was ABS, and this was also from production scrap from Lego. And here we actually also found some amounts of different metals. We also sorted that out, and we achieved very high purities especially on ABS, POM, and the copolyester that Lego uses. At the moment, we were not able to sort out the PP, TPE, and SEBS, MABS, and PA due to the very, very tiny density differences on these materials. The POM and copolyester were tested at Lego's site, and the initial tests that we have performed they show some changes in properties, so that Lego is not able to use it directly. But next step for this would be to do some more tests. There are so many things you could do. You could add instead of making 100% recycled, you could add a bit of material. Drying of the materials is also very important. We have a lot of different stuff that we have to work on further. So yeah, more testing is needed.
Thank you, Thomas, for a nice presentation on what you're able to do with your interesting technology here. Again, I'd like to open up for questions to Thomas and start myself, since I haven't seen any yet. So, Thomas, I would like to hear from you on this technology. What do you see yourself as your biggest advantage and your biggest limitation when you're comparing yourself to other sorting technologies?
So I think our biggest advantage is the versatility of our sorting technology. We can handle so many different types, so like very complex waste streams, also containing metals and glass and all kinds of stuff, foam and a lot of different stuff, where we can actually achieve very high purities on these very complex streams. But of course, our limitation is we need the differences in density. If we don't have these differences, it's not possible.
And where do you think your technology will be most used in, let's say, 5 or 10 years? Do you think you go more into closed loop recycling or also open loop cases?
I think we're going to also compete with the other technologies that are, for example, in PET recycling and other very, very large streams. But also this technology will also be used in electronic waste, where we also see a huge potential. But our main focus at the moment is, of course, the closed loop, where we keep the material value at the highest point, as you also showed, Mathias. That is the dream, of course, for us. But it's also, as you also mentioned, it's very complex. Yeah.
Just thought of a last question for you. So when you mentioned that you're looking into electronic products, we know that many of them have some problematic additives that can be brominated flame retardants or so on. So have you seen any cases where you can actually separate on the density of the additives that are in the plastics?
Yes, we have seen several things regarding this, actually. If you have the brominated flame retardant used in plastics, it increases the density quite a lot. So there will be the density difference that is needed. So in theory, we could do this. It's not something we have done on large scale yet, but we are looking into these things. But also, for example, if you have the like coloring additives like titanium dioxide, this also increases the density. So we've seen a lot of examples actually where we have like added color additives where the density changes that much, so that we are able to sort on color, which is also quite interesting. Yeah,
that's really impressive from a density point of view. Yes. You can sort on color. Yeah. Thank you so much, Thomas. I don't see any questions in the chat, so you are off the hook. We'll continue in the world of sorting with our next pre-recorded video. That's going to be from Maria Vetter Poulsen, who is a test manager in the Lego group. And she will show us some of the work that they have been doing on using spectral imaging to not only differentiate different plastic types, but actually differentiate different classes within the same plastic type.
Hi, I'm Maria Vetter Poulsen, and I work as a test manager at the Lego Group. And I would like to talk into the potential of spectral imaging. The focus will be on ABS, a material used in the classical Lego brick due to, among others, its toughness and its durability. A deeper dive into the ABS material will be presented later during this webinar. So that's a small cliffhanger. But worth mentioning for now is that ABS, as all other plastics, are sensitive towards UV and oxygen, and therefore it will, at a very slow rate though, degrade over time. And the main aim has been to investigate how spectral imaging can be used to detect older Lego elements from newer Lego elements. And spectral imaging. The foundation for it is spectroscopy and imaging. And in a few words, spectroscopy is a technique that studies how matter, and that could be a Lego element, interacts with electromagnetic wave. As seen on this video below, you will see how these seemingly very similar Lego elements appear different under UV light. And this showcases how each wavelength can bring valuable element and also material information. Spectral imaging then combines spectroscopy with imaging, and the equipment that we've used uses wavelength scans, and that is in the regions from 395 to 1700 nanometers. With wavelength scan, a reflectance is captured for each wavelength in each pixel, and that yields a data cube where we have spectral and spatial resolution. The spectral information is then used to create a supervised learning model. And in our case, we've used linear discriminant analysis as a statistical tool to maximize the separation between two classes. And you can see here in the picture below, first they appeared red, both of them. There was an older element and a newer element. And by using this supervised learning model, we can see the differences between the two. So to predict these elements that you see here in older and newer, a classification model with the labels needs to be trained. These labels, they can be established through either correlation or causation. And we've examined both. Correlation in this case can be done mechanically to check whether the toughness of the material is gone, and that's by trying to break the element. The causation can be done analytically using FTIR to examine the polybutadiene response or the XRF to examine the color pigments. So first for the correlation classification performance, and that means the thing done by the labels mechanically. We focused in on the 2x4 geometry. The 2x4, as it's one of our most beloved elements, we've had it in the portfolio for years, so it represents the natural material and color variation. We took 400 elements for training, labeled them according to their mechanical performance to old and new. We extracted the spectral data as seen on the graph to the left and generated the supervised machine learning model based on this loading plot you will see to the right. This model was then applied until a validation set, and you can see the predicted new being green and old being red here to the right. Based on the predictions, we could calculate the accuracy being the percentage of correct predictions and the recovery being the percentage of correct old predictions. And we got that to 75 and 65. So as a conclusion, we can say we get an above average prediction of old Lego elements using this correlation classification technique. But we would like to see if we could increase it a bit further using the causation-driven classification technique. Again, we took the 2x4 elements, we took the 400 training elements and relabeled them according to their analytical performance, generated a supervised learning model, and did the validation on the same 100 elements, again relabeled based on their analytical performance. And we saw an increase in accuracy to 97% and an increase in recovery to 90%. So the next step was to include more geometries in our training set, and we included 150 of these and also 150 for the validation. We combined the model, so it consists of input for in total 550 elements, and you will see the validation prediction here in the corner to the right. You will notice we kept the accuracy of 96 and we increased the recovery to 97. So in conclusion, we see an improved accuracy and recovery when we use the analytical classification technique. So with that being said, we can use spectral imaging and a causation-driven classification technique with high accuracy and recovery to detect whether a Lego element is old or new. The importance here is that we know our sample and we understand it. That was all for me. I hope this sparked your interest in spectral imaging. Thank you very much for your attention.
And thank you, Maria, for this presentation on spectral imaging and how you're working with that at Lego to classify old from new Lego bricks. I think it's really interesting work and impressive prediction rate of 96, 97%. Maybe Maria, I don't see you out there, but I hope you are with us.
Yes, I'm right here.
That's good. Now I would like to ask you to the limitation of this spectral imaging. So other than predicting old from new bricks, what are the limitations? Can you also start looking at contaminant levels or other things like this?
Yes, really good question. I think what we've learned is as long as you know your sample and you know what you're looking for, then you can detect quite a lot. You need to go back to the fundamental. You need to understand the spectroscopy. You need to understand what you're looking for, and then you can see results. We saw it with this correlation-driven technique. We got an above average, and that's fine, but that's not what we really wanted. But as soon as we cracked the code, knowing what we were looking for, we could see that increase. So I think with that being said, probably many of you out there know exactly a case that is very special to your company or what you're working with. If it's linked to spectroscopy, if you have functional groups, then I think there could be a potential.
Okay, thank you. And if you should say one or two classes that you think could really improve recycling or circular recycling, then what classes could you think of that you could sort with this method?
Again, I think that's a very big question. And I think that's also what the CFIT program is all about, diving more into the complexity of that. You mentioned some of them before, right? When you gave the introduction, we have aging, we have different additives and so forth and so forth. And I think each of this, there will be a potential here.
Thank you. And I can see we actually got some questions here in the Q&A session. Mohammed asks you if you can explain a little bit more on the analytical labeling process.
Yes. So we spent quite a long time on this. That means we took each and every individual element. We gave them a number. We did FTIR, checking for the polybutadiene response. We have ABS, we have the scent matrix, we have the polybutadiene. We know where we have the peaks. So we looked at the decrease here. We also took the XRF, going through all the inorganic compounds in our master batch to see the variation change in master batch over time. The spectral imaging system that we were using operated from 395 to 700 nanometers. That means we capture some in the visible regime, and therefore we also thought the input from the master batch, hence the XRF, would be of importance here. But very meticulous work. One element, one number, all analysis.
So very specific conditions for what you're looking for and how you are sorting this. And that leads to the next question from Jakob, whether if you can comment on how realistic it is to see this method in a high throughput context.
That's a very good question, and I think this is the first step. There's a few steps ahead, but we see an enormous development within spectral imaging. You showed in the beginning, Mathias, the sensors from near the line scans, right? But we already now see the separation on materials. This could potentially be the next steps where one could go one step deeper, focusing in on each material groups.
Thank you, Maria, so much for your presentation and your answers.
Anytime.
We will move on to the next part after the sorting and recycling, which is the processing of the materials. So here we will hear a pre-recorded video from Brian Wæhrens, a professor at Aalborg University, who have been working with his group on thinking about the process facility as being more dynamic and actually being able to handle the variety that is present in recycled materials. Because usually we think of the production facility as being very static and our material just needs to fit that. But Brian wants to get another view on this. So let's see the video from Brian, and remember that you can ask questions in the Q&A session.
Hello, my name is Brian Wæhrens, and I'm a professor at the Department for Materials and Production at Aalborg University. I'm here today to tell you about some work that we've been doing for the past half year in the context of the CFIT project, recognizing that successfully recycling plastics at industrial scale is not only about understanding the materials, it's also about how we integrate those materials into an actual production setup. We have been working with the concept that we call dynamic recipes, and the overall purpose of this work is to better align the material platform that we have with the process control in our manufacturing setup. So the problem that we often have with recycled material, which has already been unfolded, is that it has a much larger variability compared to virgin resources. This is a well-known fact. So we can do a lot about this question by harmonizing the materials more, by better sorting and so on. But we probably have to recognize that we will never get to a stage where we have perfect material quality like we would have with virgin grade materials. So what do we then do? One potential answer is that we look into dynamic recipes for plastic injection molding, where machine adapts the process to the properties of the recycled feedstock. One key problem that we have related to this is that for many years we have in industry been pursuing extreme process efficiency, which has been mainly gained by high levels of material and process standardization. So we basically understand the material very well, and we have the same material flow all the time, and we have standard process settings for the materials that we have. So we have materials in full control, and that has allowed us to a certain degree to mix in recycled material, which is less well defined. But we from experience know that we reach a limit of doing this at about 10 to 20% recycled content. For recycling and using recycled material at industrial scale, we need to understand how we can actually move beyond this experience-based threshold of 10 to 20%. And here the dynamic recipes is one potential avenue for exploring this. So what is the concept of dynamic recipes? Well, it's basically that instead of static one-size-fits-all recipes, now the injection molding will be using adaptive control loops and real-time feedbacks. So the experience of producing will actually be transferred into constant adaptation in the process. This already happens to some degree today, where smart injection molding machines have the capacity to make certain adaptations to the material flow that they experience. But we need to take this much further for it to be able to work with recycled content with the variability that we have in this material. It also includes the work with various additives that could be colorants or stabilizers or whatever it could be that we mix into the material to make it live up to the expectations that we have to the performance of the material. And all of this needs to be controlled in a dynamic setup where the material that we get into the machine now will not be the same that we will put into the machine in 1 minute. So we need this constant adaptation of the process to compensate for variability in the material. So, of course, as many other things today, machine learning, AI, is one of the responses to this work. And we have been looking into how we can actually understand the material based on machine learning algorithms. So we have been conducting tests in our lab, in our material lab, and to understand the recycled material and understand what actually happens to the material during several recycling cycles. The machine learning algorithm has been proven to be able to actually predict the quality of the product and the performance of the product in the production situation. And now the next step is then to transfer that into regulating the machine settings dynamically to adapt to these changing circumstances. Some key benefits and challenges related to the dynamic recipes concept is, of course, gaining stable part quality despite of variable material inputs. It's also related to increased use of recycled plastics, so getting beyond these 10 to 20%. It's potentially a faster ramp-up process, or setup process, and hereby also reducing scrap and downtime. It's also smarter machines, which can be utilized for other purposes as well. And then you also get into this issue of adaptive production planning and control, which will be an important capability with working with recycled materials going forward. In terms of challenges, of course, not all machines are equipped with modern sensors and real-time integration of data, and we don't necessarily have good and solid data available. We also need to have some capabilities for working with the algorithm development. There's an issue related to industrial acceptance as well, where it's partly a question of the process engineers actually accepting this way of planning the process and utilizing materials. But it's also potentially a question related to how we engage with our customers and get to better understand their particular requirements and their particular thresholds for quality acceptance for the products that they buy from us. Finally, there's also a issue related to standardization, where standardization work needs to be done in order to provide formalized acceptance limits for the recycled material. In terms of future outlook for the issue of dynamic recipes, we are right now in the process of integrating a smart injection molding facility in our lab, connected to our smart industry 4.0 smart factory lab that you see here in the picture. The machine has been donated by Novo Nordisk, so we are happy to be able to continue this work, looking into how we can better align the production setup with the material platform. So we look very much forward to taking this further, both in lab, but also with the industrial partners engaged in the project.
Thank you, Brian, for the presentation that you prepared here. I would like to ask you the first question and see if there's any afterwards. So you mentioned a couple of times this 10 to 20% limit on recycled material that is a rule of thumb today. If you were to make an educated guess, if we get this right with the adaptation of machine learning and dynamic recipes, what kind of recycled materials do you envision you could be able to? Is it 50%? And what is the bottleneck to actually get there? Is that the technology or the cost or adaptation in the industry, as you also mentioned?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very good question, and it's also a very challenging question, because my answer will probably be it depends. So it depends on the application and the market requirement. It depends on the inputs that you have available. It depends on your processing capabilities and your skills in production. So it's very difficult to say anything in general. But what is important here is that we learn how to better align the material platform with the production process and with the requirements that we have internally in the company to our products, but certainly also the expectations that the customers have to the products that we send into the market. So these things need to be aligned, and that dynamic recipes is just one element in a larger process chain, which can assist us to better understand how to work with a material that has a more varying characteristics compared to what we know from virgin resources today. So setting a particular target for this would be difficult, but if we look at the big picture, then if we are not to use more virgin material than we do today going forward, then within the next 20 years, we will need to have a 50% of the supply coming from alternative sources, recycling and new material platforms. So this is the global big picture that we have, and I think the dynamic recipes can actually assist us in moving closer to that target. So in that sense, I think it's an important step, but it has no bearing without also us understanding the materials better, characterizing the materials better, understanding market requirements better. So everything needs to basically come together for this to make sense. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. And in the interest of time, I think we will jump to the last part of our material cycle that we are dealing with in this session. And here we'll hear from Jakob Moberg Sandager, who's a senior circular plastics engineer at Novo Nordisk, and he will take us through some of the considerations that a company like Novo Nordisk have to do when considering taking plastics back and actually putting it back into a medical product. So let's get the video up and running and hear what Jakob has to say about this.
Thank you, Mathias, for the introduction. And hi, everyone. My name is Moberg Sandager. I'm a senior circular materials engineer here at Novo Nordisk. And today I'll be going over how in Novo Nordisk we are looking into getting recycled back into our production. I'll be upfront and honest, this is not something we have fully solved yet. It is something that's still a work in process and we're investigating. But I'll go over the three main areas we're looking into and investigating that we believe will allow us to succeed with this goal. And those areas focusing on the quality of our waste stream. How does this waste stream potentially impact the patient safety of the devices and how we're testing for that? And then finally, how are we navigating the regulatory landscape around our devices? So first off, the waste stream itself. Here the big focus for us is ensuring we have a pure waste stream or as pure as possible. As in, our devices made of many different polymers. One of the primary ones we're focusing on now is PP, polypropylene. And that's important that it's the same polypropylene that's going back into a product, not just a random mix, because then it won't be the same requirements as we have today. So essentially it is our device becoming our device again. It's not random products. So we're gathering our devices from the patients and we're sorting them in the fractions. And where right now we're focusing on this is the cap of a Flex Touch, where essentially we're taking off the cap and then that is being recycled, and then we're doing tests on that to see, do we believe this fulfills our requirements so far? And so far our results are positive, I would say. So essentially it's a cap that's becoming a new cap again. It's not a random product becoming a random product. It's our product into our product. So that's kind of what we're doing on the waste stream on the post side, but that also means, because again, we see that we have a pure waste stream, we can achieve quite a lot. So also an example of this is in that was post-consumer waste. I also talk about post-industrial waste. We have, it's a little hard to see, but this little white ring called the UC. I don't know, hopefully you can see it at home. But that little white ring called the UC, end of content, is what it stands for. And it essentially has a function of when there's no more drug left in the device, the patient just can't keep dosing when there's no drug left, so we'll lock up the device when there's no drug remaining. And that is made of pump today, and this is the code runner for it, but it's a little white ring. So 84% of the total shot volume and injection molding cycle, that was being discarded, and only 16% was actual product. In the past, we grinded that up and incinerated it because we believe that, and it is true, that when you recycle pump, there is degradation happening of the monomer chains. That is a fact. But we challenged this some years back to say, okay, what if we actually characterize this? So we did extensive studies, both on people who have done material characterization, these ISO dog bones you've seen probably a million times. And then also we have an example here on the machine. This is an exploratory test. But these smaller dog bones, there are custom geometries to give us better simulation data fit for our products. So the ISO is very nice to understand if anything happening on a general level for us, but we also have our own custom internal tests to allow us to get more accurate data for our simulations, to also show on a simulation level that this is also safe. And then finally actually making actual components to show in a real device that again, it's safe for the patient. And that result with this 84%, even though it's a closed loop constantly going, it didn't have a negative impact on the patient safety, as the main requirement for this is actually the friction and not the strength of the product. The pump is simply chosen for the friction, the strength is not as critical. This does not mean that pump is now safe to recycle in all our products. It just means it's safe for this specific component. So we have to test it on an individual level every single time, as different components, different materials were chosen for specific reasons. So the key message there is really understand your products, what properties are critical and what you need to test for, and then understand when are these thresholds critical. Because we always test more extreme cases than are actually realistic to ensure it's safe even in unforeseen scenarios. But that's running today at 84%. And we're hoping to repeat that success now with the post-consumer on the cap. Then finally, some of you want to talk about the regulatory landscape, and that has also been still a tricky challenge, because strictly speaking, there are no hard set rules regarding guidelines and regulatory. Of course, that doesn't mean we're allowed to implement it. That where we interpret it is there's a bigger proof of burden on us to gather data and show that this is still safe for the patient. And when we have gathered sufficient data and evidence on our side that we believe is safe for the patient, we'll submit that to regulatory to say we would like to make this change, and here's our evidence that we believe is safe, and then see do they give us a letter of no challenge or not. So that's what we are looking into, is to say, get enough evidence to show that it's safe. For this component, it'll be on a component basis. So that is, the three challenges we're looking at is, again, to repeat myself, A, have a clean waste stream, make sure it's your product to your product, at least in our case, where we can control and ensure the requirements are kept. Test each individual component or product you have to ensure that whatever specification you have identified, they are being withheld, even with recycled material. Because again, we accept that there is some change happening in the material. That's not the point. It's more this change is not significant enough that has a negative impact. And then finally, if you're in a regulatory landscape, you're dealing with that. If there are no regulations, then gather the evidence and then submit it to prove that you believe this is safe and this is something that will work and not have a negative impact. That's all I have today. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, please reach out.
Thank you, Jakob, for this video that you prepared. And I do have a question for you in this regard, because you mentioned a couple of times that you need to test on a component-to-component basis. And of course, it makes sense from a patient safety point of view, but doesn't it also constitute a large bottleneck for actually scaling and getting more recycled material into your products? I just think if you prove a recycled product is not a problem in a friction setting, then doesn't that show a way for other friction critical components?
Yeah, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me. Yeah, essentially, this is also not it is a lot of work, of course, but it's also not an exclusive issue with recycling. It is something we do whenever we do a material change, even if we're changing from one PP supply to another PP supply, we still do all these tests. Though right now with the recycled materials, we are doing more extensive tests that we would otherwise normally do, because we are not as familiar and experienced with recycled materials, and it's not as well defined the literature of what happens in this scenario, and there's less controls around it at the moment. I do believe, as you mentioned, that if we take the pump as an example, when we did this pump test, we did extractable studies on it, even though it's an internal component. And that means essentially it's an internal component, it will never interact with the patient anyway. It's inside the device and it's purely mechanical. So there, when we get more experience with recycled materials, I do believe we'll probably reduce the amount of tests and the scope of the tests we're doing, and then do what we do similar with virgin materials, that we purely focus on the critical mechanics for that component has to fulfill, as we also do today when doing counter-grade testing or what have you. So we will always do some extensive tests and will never be a blank check. But I do think that, and I hope that as we get more experience and get better standards defined, we'll probably reduce the scope of testing, because right now we keep going back into the drawing board and doing full characterization of everything we can think of. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. It's quite extensive here in the beginning of circular recycling.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jakob. We will jump into this panel discussion, which will be the final part of this session. Here we'll gather all of the speakers, and there's one substitution of Maria. Instead, it will be Søren Christiansen, who's a Senior Director of Material Technology at the LEGO site, that will take part in the panel here. And I think I'll start by asking the entire panel for a quick round of how do you see the largest bottleneck of achieving true plastics recycling, circular recycling. So what's the biggest bottleneck? Is it design? Is it collection, sorting, production, regulation, or is it something completely different? Maybe Frode, you would like to begin?
Yeah, I can begin. I think I said quite a lot in my video. I think return system is one thing, but I think the biggest challenge that I see it is it starts with design, and it starts with how we are designing plastic and how plastic is designed into products, and used in our daily lives today. You see it in the waste streams, and when we are trying to recycle huge waste streams in governmental waste streams, and you see the amount that comes back and are potentially possible to recycle compared to what is, just becoming waste because of the quality and the mix, and that plastic doesn't play well together. That is, for me, the biggest, challenge. And then it also fits very well together with how do we then get from this place where we are today to a more like circular, uniform waste stream type of environment in the future. I don't have all the answers on that. It's a very, very complex process, and it affects a lot, and it affects also the economic systems around plastic and the big players that are in play in this. So I think that's for me the biggest obstacle, to get to a more circular future for plastic, in my eyes.
Thanks. And Thomas, do you have a view on this as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Frode. I totally agree, Frode. But also just the price of virgin materials is at the moment. Virgin materials are so cheap. Chinese are overflowing the market with the cheap plastics, and then it gets really, really difficult for recycling companies everywhere to achieve an economic, it doesn't make sense on an economic perspective, and that's a shame because it should.
Totally. And Søren, do you also have an input on how you see the bottleneck, for instance, in Lego materials or in general? You are muted. We'll jump to Brian instead.
Well, I guess my perspective is that we need to build trust into the material platform. So if companies dare to use recycled content, then the market will develop around it and technologies will develop. So it's basically establishing this entire market foundation for recycled content, which is still fairly immature. But in order for us to do that, so companies are of course not going to put their business at risk. So Novo Nordisk or Lego cannot send products into the market that are not safe. So in that sense, we need to build increased trust into the material platform, and by characterizing and further developing the resource streams there. So that would be my take, but someone has to take a bet to develop the market. I think that we see that in many different circumstances, also with Power to X today and other things.
Indeed. You have a comment on this, Frode?
Yeah, I'll just support Brian on that, because it's things that you don't really foresee and that you don't think about before you start recycling. Like we have been doing it now. First of all, the streams that we are getting are in the start of a take-back program and the recycling program, very small. And it takes time to get to a point where you have stable, output streams of clean materials. And then it takes time also to characterize this and understand the properties of these. And then if you then start looking at, where are the markets? It is, for me, I'm coming from a production background. I've been molding products since I was 18 years old. So I know, a lot about molding, and I see a lot of opportunities. But the companies, you are asking a company that has a process around virgin materials today to go out and take a bet on your material, saying, okay, you need to convert your production process to recycled material, which have bigger variation, etc., etc. And to do that, you have to guarantee a stable stream, a certain stable quality of the material. Otherwise, they won't start, converting. So, and that market is not there yet because there are too few companies and too few marketplaces where these clean materials are coming out, high quality clean streams of plastic are coming out. So that market is not established. So that's also what we are facing now, is that we need to establish that open loop market also at the same time as we are working on trying to also close the loop where we have possibilities to close the loop. But we have to have open loop for a lot of the material, and then we have to establish that market also. And that is like many bricks that has to fall into place before we get to that point. But I see thousands of opportunities for these materials to be used. But yeah, it's a difference between me seeing it and then actually the customer being able to and willing to convert the production based on it.
Indeed, today we've talked a lot about closed loop recycling, circular recycling, but we do need open loop recycling. So maybe, Frode, can you comment on how you make this decision in Novo Nordisk on when to bet for something circular, or when are you looking for open systems to tap into?
But it builds a lot on what Jakob was saying. We have been looking at the recycling process, and in the start, many are asking you how are we actually doing it? The industrial process. And then in the start, we were evaluating, the assembly solutions, crushing solutions. What was the most efficient way of doing this? And we very fast came to the conclusion that the assembly solutions would be way too expensive and way too complex in the early start of the project. So what we are doing now is that we are to make it efficient. We are having a crushing solution. So we crush the devices and then we afterwards separate them out into different clean fractions. That leaves us with, clearly it's limits of how much you can separate and how clean the materials can be when they are coming out, because you are mixing them and then afterwards you have to take them apart. So having closed loop back into medical devices, for us, with all the compliance and the regulatory landscape that we have to live up to, it's very difficult, and that's why we are focusing on the few opportunities that we see. For example, the example that Jakob was showing, the cap, because we are getting the cap off as a separate part of the process, and that becomes a very clean stream of PP. So that's where we then go for, and try to pursue a closed loop. But for all the rest of the material, which is not 100% clean, and it's very clean, it's like 99% plus, but it's not 100%. This has a very high quality and can be used for many other purposes. So for that part, we are looking for open loop solutions, and a very important thing for us on the open loop is that we are trying to focus on things that indirectly or directly are reducing demand for virgin plastic. That we get into products that then would be sold in the market, that would then reduce demand for other products that would have been using virgin plastic, for example. So that's what we're trying to target. But that's not easy in the start, and that is a ladder that we are climbing, day by day, and in the years to come when we get more stable streams. So always focus on reducing demand for virgin plastic, because why are you recycling if you are just adding to, more products in the market? So you need always to have that in mind. How do you play into the market in such a way that you are reducing demand for virgin, in that way, non-renewable resources?
That makes sense. Jakob, from a production side of view, what would you count as success if you were to implement, when you are hopefully going to implement some plastics in a new cap for your insulin pen. Would that be a success with adding 10%, 30%, 50%? What do you count as a success here?
I would say any amount we can get from the post-consumer side of things would be a success to kind of start the discussion and show, the act of post-consumer is not dangerous. Because that's the big, how would you say, in our industry, when we talk to other competitors and also non-competitors that are in the medical field, it's the very act of putting something post-consumer in your product that is the scary part. And then hopefully once we break that barrier and we open up that discussion, I think the final goal will be around 70%. That's far in the future. And I don't think we can go above 70%. And that's not so much due to mechanical reasons. That's more of I don't think there'll be a supply chain efficient enough that we can achieve after cleaning everything and take back and gathering volumes, etc. I think 70% is the ultimate goal. Maybe it can be improved slightly, but that's how I see it. And that's the long term. And I think to reach that, as Frode mentioned also, is we have to design or think differently in how we design our products. That I think is the long-term goal. In the short term, I think it's mostly focusing on the sorting systems to prove that if we have these effective sorting systems that can achieve a high purity, and we can show that this high purity material going back into our products, it also again opens up the door to show that if designers actually design around this, it will result in a material, in a real product. But that's also the tough discussion right now is our designers could design around recycling, but strictly speaking, we don't know if we could do it even if they did it. So that's always the tricky challenge in medical right now is that really trying to prove that this is possible. And that's where we show now on the post-industrial, that again, the post-industrial with a very pure quality, there we do see it works. So now it's just showing the post-consumer now, can that also work?
Yeah, that's the first step.
Yeah.
I would like to check if your technology works on with a question. So I know you are betting on making very durable products with a very long lifetime of your Lego bricks. Do you foresee that the sorting technology will be able for you to use some of that material in the future, or will there always be too large a problem with material degradation? What's your view on this?
I'm checking the phone. Does it work now?
It does, and we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I actually had a comment also to the first question about the biggest bottlenecks, and I think I think we should separate on the single-use elements products where regulation and standardization is really key to success, because before you have standardized, it's difficult to create collecting systems and designing a product according to that. And if we're talking about product with long lifetime, then it's more degraded, more polluted, more unpredictable what you get back. And here the advanced sorting and the recycling solutions are key to success. Because you must do things like Maria showed you. You must identify the exact product you have in your hand, the material composition, but also you can say impurities and degradation. So back to the question, if sorting is a part of it. Yes, I think. There are different levels. We have done experiments with both internal waste and also we do also have waste from waste. We have product we could test on externally, and I think by the sorting from with the Trebo issue, you can say approach. I think that's most suitable for internal waste, where you have the exact composition, what to separate. You might have 2, 3, 4 fractions you need to separate. Whereas if you go externally, and you can say from things you get in from the market, then you lose information if you grind it up. And I think that information that it actually has a shape is important for the sorting phase. So I think it's internal, external, single use and durable products. That they kind of, there are different categories here where different technologies must fit in.
Definitely. Thank you. I think we are moving into maybe one big last question. Maybe you can start, Brian, to give your inputs on how do you think in 10 years, if we do this right, if we get it right, how would the plastic ecosystem look like?
Yeah, that's a very big question, but I think it will look more like the markets that we know today. So we will have an industrial scale infrastructure that treats end of use materials as important resources, and that requires infrastructure development. So take back programs, for example, the logistical side of that is very important to make it economically feasible, but also environmentally feasible. Then the sorting and the characterization also has to get into a industrial scale, and I think Trebo's example is a very good case for this, and also the spectroscopy that has been done at LEGO is an important mechanism for this. But all of this needs to be scaled to industrial level where we can actually become a credible source for companies to use as they use material sources today. So I think that's what I'm looking into as the big future.
Thanks. And anybody want to follow up on their vision in 10 years on the ecosystem, how it could look like? Yeah, Søren?
Yeah, I think it's 10 years ahead. Which world do we have? I think we need to get inspiration from where things are working good. And here I think specifically on PET bottles, we have a system today. You can reuse the material, but we do also have degradation, and we do also have pollution. But if you go to a country like Japan, which has super strict regulations on how you are not allowed to tint it, you're not allowed to color, you're not allowed to print on it. And that creates very clean material streams, and I think we will need to go in that direction, else we will keep downgrading our materials. And then I hope for that these advanced sorting technologies, which will do more than just sort, but we will also by these analyzing of products coming back from the market, be able to identify what is actually the degradation behaviors in different regions, so we can use that information to design even better products which actually withstand the actual conditions in the use space.
So it'll be maybe a little bit boring in the future. Only the same color Lego bricks to play with.
This is very much about improving the for us it's about improving
I think we lost your sound, Søren, again. I don't know what happened, but we'll jump to Frode on the last vision in 10 years in the future.
You're very ambitious when the 10 years, Mathias.
Mm-hmm.
10 years is a short time, especially in the medical business. Hopefully in 10 years you will maybe have the next generation device on the market. That's the time it takes almost to develop and get the next generation device in the market. But as Søren was saying, I think we need to look at who has been successful and what they've done, and then look at the pond system, in Denmark, the PET bottles, and I think I'm back to, I explained a lot about that ecosystem before, and I think that is it will take more time to get there. But I would like more industries to start doing what we are trying to do now, trying to recycle their products, because this creates learnings about how to design the next generation devices in a better way. Because that's what I hope that we will see over time, that we in 10 years will have more products on the market that are designed for recycling and designed for circularity. That is a development that is happening now, and I see that many industries are being regulated. Automotive industry, electronic industry, they have been regulated over some time now, and that pushes them towards designing for circularity and designing for recycling. And we are doing also this to be ahead of regulations in our industry, but that's probably also coming. So I think the regulatory landscape is definitely going to play a role here, and then also cost, that actually it becomes cost effective to do recycling, so that it can also be an economical benefit of actually doing recycling. But 10 years is tough, but yeah.
It is, and it will take longer, but it's good that we already started now, because as you can hear, it's a complex thing of trying to achieve true plastic circularity. And with this, I would like to thank all of the presenters for your inputs and presentations. And we will be moving into a session number 2 in 11 minutes. So we have a short coffee break here, and 11:05 we will be back with the next session. So thank you to our presenters and for the audience for your listening.